Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. First, go right to the satellite imagery. You can see the huge area of cloudiness out here associated with the next system rolling into the Bering Sea. A lot of moisture with that, and main rain producing clouds right here on back into the northwest. And this is mostly out here, cirrus, and then thickening and lowering, just getting some rain into the AKwx area during the mid-afternoon hours, picking up about 1/100 of an inch there, heavier back to the west with stronger winds gusting 45, possibly 50 miles an hour ahead of the front. Otherwise, clouds, pergolofts scatter out down here along the Alaska Peninsula, but there were some showers, especially around Cold Bay during the afternoon today. But northwest winds, high pressure building ahead of this system. So northwest winds on the eastern side of the ridge kicked up to about 35 miles an hour there along the Alaska Peninsula. And northwest winds dried it out over Kodiak Island. Sunshine this afternoon, northwest winds gusting 30 miles an hour. Temperatures into the lower 60s. And pretty fair conditions over much of the interior, mostly sunny up here through the north central areas. And scattered showers, isolated thunderstorms developing in this area of cloudiness here. Actually, a couple of strikes in the Susitna Valley already recorded, and then back up along this band toward the Nulato Hills, and then over here in this band that's trying to push westward there over the upper 10 or the 40-mile country. Nothing really widespread, not a whole lot of lightning strikes yet, but they'll probably increase over the next couple of hours. Low pressure off the southeast coast actually was pulling back to the west a little bit and then southwest, and they'll probably just kind of wobble around and then slowly move eastward and weaken over the next couple of days. So that brought rain, about 1/3 of an inch falling at Metlakatla today, as well as Cordova and over toward, or Cordova at about, or I'm sorry, Yakutat at about 1/3 of an inch of precipitation today, while Cordova, same thing, 1/3 of an inch as well, about 3300ths. Otherwise, Chisana here picked up 1/4 of an inch there in the eastern Copper River Basin areas. And then the scattered thunderstorms here along the trough, kind of isolated actually. And the winds with that tightening gradient out there and the gale force winds ahead of the front and all that moisture spreading eastward will tonight push all the way to the Fox Islands with those winds here coming with it back to the west there. So a narrow band again of gale force winds here in advance of the front, still west of the Pribilofs tonight as that ridge pulls through to the southwest coast. It'll be light wind conditions here with variably cloudy skies, Alaska Peninsula. Definitely the winds dropping off from what you're seeing today or earlier today here, going kind of light and variable. Winds also diminishing Kodiak Island with a slackening gradient, but staying dry. Variably cloudy here, mostly clear actually over the southwest interior. A few more clouds up here over the Chukchi Sea with areas of fog, St. Lawrence Island into the Chukchi Sea and anywhere along the Arctic coast, probably the north slope as well, especially in toward morning. South of the Brooks Range, fair, light winds. Isolated evening thunderstorms possible here with scattered showers all the way back up to the eastern Seward Peninsula. Isolated showers across the Copper River Basin. Dry to the south, maybe an isolated shower over the Kenai Peninsula, but the main rain area here, other than the Aleutians, will be along the southeast coast as this low, still off the coast there, rotates another band of moisture in. So periods of rain, central, southern panhandle showers either side to the north or the south. And for tomorrow, same thing, another trough brings another surge of rain in. Light rain with becoming more showery up toward the north, toward Juneau over to Haines, and also down to the south, probably more numerous showers for the southern panhandle with this main low center still off the coast there associated with an upper level trough. Thunderstorms again possible, Kenai Peninsula, western Alaska Range up to the Nulato Hills. Seems to be the most unstable area tomorrow. Isolated showers here, southeast interior, mostly sunny, Tanana Valley, all the way up to the Brooks Range. Fog and low clouds with maybe some clearing for the Arctic coast and north slope. And this front now pushing eastward toward the coast, right across the Fox Islands tomorrow. And then rain spreading into the Alaska Peninsula, possibly losing the gale force winds, probably losing the gale force winds tomorrow afternoon in this portion of the frontal boundary area, but strongest winds will be farther to the north, and good westerly winds on the south side of this low center that's slowly tracking northward. Showers and possible gusts 40, maybe 50 miles an hour out over the western Aleutian areas. Otherwise, low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast there, with easterly breezes about 15 miles per hour, 15, maybe 20 in some areas, 20 miles an hour. High pressure ridging still holding here, kind of a trough at the surface, but basically interior Alaska under the influence of upper level high pressure, a ridge pretty good there. And so the jet stream coming across the Bering Sea, they're splitting with one branch heading northward. So this front will slow down, begin to weaken starting tomorrow night, and but will find its way with some rain into the southwest interior and Bristol Bay to Kodiak. But this will be an area of light rain, and especially here over the southwest interior, that'll begin to get more intermittent and hit and misses. That whole rain shield begins to dissipate. Showers behind it, ending for the Pribilofs. Isolated showers, Alaska Peninsula. Variably to mostly cloudy here across the Aleutians to the central Aleutians. Another trough coming around the bottom side of that low brings rain and drizzle into the western Aleutian areas, mostly north of the area. And that low finally pushes into the pan. That's going to keep a chance of showers, keep it unsettled through Tuesday there for the southern panhandle. And better conditions, could see some sunshine in the north. Chance of rain in the afternoon, Kenai Peninsula early afternoon or by noon, and maybe over to Cordova, some light rain. Chances increase. Isolated showers again to Wrangell Mountains. Central Alaska rains, maybe there's a sit in a valley, and back to the northwest. Thunderstorms definitely a possibility here over the northwest interior, all the way up to the Noatak Valley. There looks like it'll be unstable enough for that possibly to happen. And low clouds and fog, same old story for the Arctic coast with the winds remaining easterly. And for the lows tonight, lower 40s here through the west central interior, actually all the way down to Iliamna, 45 the low for Kodiak, and 40s for the Panhandle, 40s south central Alaska, upper 30s central interior, lower 20s Arctic coast to near 30 over the North Slope and Brooks Range, low 40s out west. And for the highs, lower 60s for the McGrath area, Nikolai up into the west central interior. And actually eastward, probably see some lower to mid 60s all the way over to the border across the upper Tanana Valley and the upper Yukon. Highs around 30, trying to push 30. Some areas only in the upper 20s for the Arctic coast. Highs in the 40s for the Aleutians. Highs in the 50s for the Panhandle. And for the lows, looking right around 40 or in the lower 40s here for the west central part of the state. That seems to be the mildest area, as well as south central Alaska, mid 40s. Lower 20s up along the Arctic coast. Upper 30s and lower 40s for the Aleutians. And then for the southeast coast, we've got lows in the 40s, really not much of a diurnal change. Lower 40s for the lows, 50s for the highs. And for the eastern Copper River Basin, probably the higher valleys dropping into possibly the lower 30s, otherwise 35 to 40. Again, with mid 40s for south central Alaska. And up in the Tanana Valley, upper 30s to near 40. And then the highs for Tuesday afternoon looking like this. A little warmer here over the interior with temperatures possibly in some areas here like Chalkitzik and Beaver could push up into near or into the lower 70s, otherwise mid to upper 60s here. The Tanana Valley over toward Eagle. And then warmer temperatures here into the mid 60s, possibly over the northwest valleys there, right up across the Brooks Range. And that'll help trigger those afternoon thunderstorms. Upper 40s, lower 50s, Yukon Kuskokwim Delta, 55 to 60, south central Alaska, mid 50s again for the southeast coast here and out west. Not a lot of change. Lower 40s for the highs, not much higher than your lows for the Pribilof Islands. Same thing for the Aleutians, upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 30s along the Arctic coast, and then 30s on the north side of the Seward Peninsula.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We've got several areas of pretty widespread IFR, North Slope on out into the Arctic Ocean. St. Lawrence Island, actually the Bering Strait here, down to St. Matthew Island, and then cutting across the southeast Bering there toward the Alaska Peninsula, and a huge area out here over the western, pushing into the central Aleutians as time goes on. little bit of IFR to start the day out Monday, there, Memorial Day for the, mostly around the Wrangell Mountains and also north and down along the eastern border of the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, that dissipates a little bit, but doesn't go away completely. Otherwise, marginal VFR for much of the southeast coast. Probably going VFR up here over the northern areas. And IFR still hanging in over the Wrangell Mountains, now showing up there northwest Prince William Sound and the north slope to the Arctic coast. IFR, big area IFR off the coast here in the Bering Sea, kind of merging up with the original one. Right on down across the Fox Islands, getting that big storm, a lot of moisture spreading east-northeastward throughout the entire day. They'll probably be rolling on in a little bit. It'll slow down here as it approaches the coast, but probably that'll push eastward during the evening hours. And then for the morning, only gets to about this position and kind of holds stationary there due to that split flow aloft. And we've got IFR here along mostly the southern side of the Alaska Peninsula as that front sort of weakens right through this area. Some IFR now pushes in southern Kodiak Island, holds up over the north slope, and North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, IFR increases a little bit by Tuesday morning over the southeast coast. And then for Tuesday afternoon, marginal VFR for the Panhandle, IFR from, say Elfin Cove there, up to Yakutat westward to the eastern Kenai Peninsula across Prince William Sound, IFR southern Kodiak Island to the Alaska Peninsula. Still IFR hanging tough there, Arctic coast, and a little less of the north slope now. And good VFR, as you can see in the interior areas. Marginal out over the Bering Sea, a lot less IFR out here now, but still some up there toward St. Lawrence Island. Passes Anatuvik marginal, becoming VFR, and Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow. Same forecast for rainy, windy, another VFR day there. And Isabel, VFR possibly becoming marginal, build up in the clouds and some moisture. Otherwise, Mentasta, occasionally marginal the entire day Monday. Tanita, marginal VFR to start, and then becoming VFR, probably mid to late morning. And for Portage, marginal VFR times, just a risk of some IFR here on the eastern entrance, maybe. And then for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, optimistically becoming VFR into the afternoon. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here, kind of a cold pool right here with the northern Panhandle, really associated with that upper low off the coast there. And otherwise, 4,000 to 6,000 feet through here with some upper high pressure that's actually a little farther to the north there. Starting to warm it up a little bit, but also dragging some chillier air in from the north there with an upper disturbance dropping southward, bringing 2,000 feet here, keeping it from, or pushing it kind of back southward from what it was. And then 2,000 feet here all across the southwest coast. Much warmer air ahead of that storm pushing into the central Aleutians, 10,000 feet, and that'll be pushing eastward into the afternoon. And for icing, with all that moisture with that storm, not too bad, kind of a real widespread area of isolated moderate rime icing here above about 9,000 feet, spreading northeastward from the west to east here. And enhanced, could be some considerable moderate rime icing over the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, jet stream looking like this, strong jet with that upper low coming, associated with a big storm coming eastward there. But the flow splits right through here, so as that front approaches, it's going to start to weaken and slow down quite a bit as it approaches the southwest coast. A couple of weak lows over here, 9,000 feet, 35 knots out of the south, increased to 45 to 50 over the central and western Aleutians. Light variable winds under ridging over the interior. Light winds for the Panhandle and Gulf of Alaska. Same thing at 3,000 feet here, high pressure ridging right through the central interior of the Arctic coast, so light winds, 5 to 10 knots through the interior of Alaska from the Gulf to the Arctic, and winds, kind of a little band there of about 25 knot winds, mostly affecting the southern southeast coast, otherwise 10 to 15. 15 for Kodiak, and for the Aleutians, occasional moderate chop, Alaska Peninsula, all the way out to Shemya.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is Eric Stevens, our good friend from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at UAF. And thanks for joining us, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here, Dave.
And we love to hear about all the fascinating developments, new and old, and how we're using the tools here, especially around Alaska. And I've got to think that, satellite meteorology right now is a fascinating time to be involved in. If we go back to the first satellite, Tyros, back in 1960, I think is when we got some of those first pictures. Weather and meteorology probably changed that day for a whole lot of people, and it's still changing today, right?
Oh, you know it. Satellite imagery is so important, and it's getting better all the time. Of course, never perfect, but especially for us in Alaska, where there are other data sets like radars and weather balloons are so thinly spread.
Right.
The satellite is the great equalizer because the satellite sees everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got one particular issue in volcanic ash detection.
That's a big deal here. Yeah.
You know it. If you fly an airplane into volcanic ash, your jet engine might just fail. And an airplane without engines is in a world of hurt.
Sure.
So if there's a volcano that goes off, satellite imagery is the way to track that plume of ash and to tell pilots this is where you need to not be to avoid this ash plume. And there's a phrase out there, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Okay.
Well, it turns out, what we're going to discuss today, that the difference is everything. There's a technique called channel differencing.
Okay.
That if you take one piece of the spectrum of what the satellite detects and a slightly different wavelength of that spectrum, even though those two images might look similar, magical things happen when you subtract one from the other. And they reveal information that was already there, but it was hard to find until you did that subtraction.
That sounds like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure when he's got those fancy glasses and he's flipping one up and back and forth. I mean, is this what we're talking about?
Well, let's go more highbrow and talk Michelangelo.
Oh,
so apparently Michelangelo made some amazing sculpture, and someone said, Michael, that's amazing. How did you do it? And Michelangelo's reply allegedly was, well, in that rock, the statue was already in there.
Right.
I just scraped away the unnecessary bits. In satellite meteorology, sometimes there are meteorological features that are in the data, but you can't see it until you combine or difference some of the channels.
Okay.
And we've got a case, good old Pavlov volcano goes off now and then.
Sure.
And you can observe directly a picture of the volcano. Just take it with your iPhone. You can see a volcano
it is
going off.
erupting. Yep.
Right. But if you want to get the broad view, we need satellite to do that. Now, there are a couple of wavelengths that we can look at. So what's a wavelength?
What is a wavelength?
That's the amount of space between a peak and a valley and another peak in a certain part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're going to look at 12 micron wavelength and 10.8 micron wavelength.
What is a micron?
So what's a micron? Yeah, we're getting into the geek department now. A micron is a unit of length, and it is quite tiny. We're looking at what's called long wave wavelengths.
Okay.
But it takes 25,000 of these microns to make an inch. A human blood cell is about 5 microns across. So when we're talking about 12 micron imagery as allegedly long wave, well, that's relative.
Pretty short for light.
Yeah, it's other part of the, it's just an expression for the spectrum there.
Okay.
So we can look at a 12 micron image, say a satellite image. At 12 microns, we're seeing a heat signature here, really, and the way this color enhancement works is the yellow and the red stuff is high cold clouds down here over the Gulf of Alaska into South Central. And if you were asked, where do you find the volcanic ash plume in this image?
Hey, where do you find the volcanic plume in this image?
It's hard to do. I'm not sure I could find it. If you were to look at this image and just say, show me what jumps out at you here, I'd say, well, nothing really. Well, let's look. So 12 micron doesn't help us. Let's look at 10.8 microns.
All right.
All right, look at that. It's practically the same image. So where's this volcanic ash? Can't find it at 12 microns, can't really see it at 10.8, but when we subtract one channel from the other, magically the plume appears. The color enhancement here highlights the ash in blue.
Wow.
The information was already there, but we couldn't find it until we subtracted one channel from another.
Very interesting.
It's almost magical. Similarly, let's say you're looking for fog up on the North Slope. It's kind of a foggy neighborhood.
Sure.
In 11 micron and 3.9 micron, we've got a 3.9 micron image here. it's a big fuzzy blur over Barrow. We can't see where the fog is. But the information is lurking in there waiting for us to reveal it. All we have to do is find that difference between the 11 micron and the 3.9, and then this image becomes this image, and the fog bank jumps right out, and you can see it up there at Barrow. Now, you got to choose the right tool for the job.
Sure.
Like they say, you open your toolbox, all kinds of stuff in there. What do we need for this particular task? If you want to find volcanic ash, we look at 12 and 10.8 micron, find that difference. If you want to find fog, we'll look at 11 and 3.9 micron, find that difference. It's great, different tools for different jobs. Of course, there's always caveats and gotchas, but this fog procedure, it only works at night, because when the sun comes up, it gets in the way. So every product has its strengths and limitations, and in meteorology, the challenge is using the right tool for the right job, and these are some of those tools.
And discovery is still happening, even with meteorology. The weather's been around for a long time, but the tools that are being developed to understand the meteorology is fascinating and still very new science.
It's such a young science. We've come so far. I'm getting old enough now that I can literally say that, when I was a boy, we didn't have this kind of thing. And there's new things happening all the time. New satellites will be launched in coming years that will have better instruments than ever before. It's an exciting time, and this is so helpful for Alaska because satellites help fill in the gaps between other ways of observing the weather. Satellites, the great equalizer for Alaska.
Yeah, and help so many people stay safe in so many ways every day up here in the last frontier.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, protecting lives and property.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. We love to hear about this fascinating information, and boy, it just makes me want to go watch satellite pictures all day. So hopefully we're inspiring more people to do the same thing, and just be curious. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing a little bit of an expansion of the sea ice free up here in the Chukchi Sea, not a whole lot, and still have some ice up there in Norton Sound, or in Norton Bay, and a little bit out here to the west around Wales there, as well as in toward Kotzebue Sound and that inland lake. Otherwise, continued slow melting in the forecast there for the next couple of days. And for the marine forecast, south to southwest 25 knots. Here for the south coast seas 9 to 10 feet. East 25, turn northeast, then come down to 20 knots for the north coast. South 20 knots, Lynn Canal, southeast 20 for Stevens Passage. Southeast 25, small craft advisories for Clarence Strait. That low still affecting the area. And then much lighter winds on Tuesday. That system moves over mainly the upper system aloft, and at the surface not much left of it. So winds will be lighter, west to northwest 15 knots, all the way up to the north coast there, but dropping off to 5 knots actually in the extreme north coast here. So pretty light winds there. Lynn Canal, south 20, northwest 10 for Stevens Passage, and pretty light and variable actually for the southern inside channels. Prince William Sound, variable to north, light winds, 2-foot seas, southwest 10 with 6-foot seas for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And north at 10 here for the west side, west 15, Barren Islands, 20 knots out of the west for Kamishak Bay, and south 20 for Southern Cook Inlet. And the forecast for Tuesday, we've got south winds at 10 here for all of Cook Inlet with 2-foot seas, southeast 20 with 5-foot seas there for Kamishak Bay, 15 out of the southeast of the Barren Islands. And east at 10 becomes south at 10 here for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Prince William Sound, still 10-knot winds, 2-foot seas, but variable to prevailing southeast. Shelikof Strait, southwest at 20, west 20. Lighter winds tomorrow for the Kodiak Island area. Southwest 20, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Castle Cape, Cape Sarachev, south winds 30 knots here for the peninsula, 10-foot seas. And southeast at 30 for the Bering Sea side. South 15 for the Bristol Bay zone. And then those will kick up to about 20, a little bit stronger, not too bad though, for the Tuesday time period. Southwest 15, north side of the peninsula, south side, west 20, then south 20 up towards Sitkinak. Light east to southeast winds now for Kodiak Island at 15 knots, but those seas still 8 feet on the eastern zones. Western Aleutians, west to southwest 30 knots. And west to southwest 25 knots here behind that front for the central Aleutians. And then some minimum gales out in advance of that across the Fox Islands, 35 knots. And for Tuesday, southwesterlies 20 to 25 here for the Fox Islands with 9 to 10 foot or 11 foot seas. 10 to 12 foot seas, 25 to 30 knots southwest for the central Aleutians and west-southwest at 30 for the western areas. And for Norton Sound, light westerlies tomorrow, but St. Lawrence Island east 20, southeast 30 knots here, so small craft advisories along the southwest coast. Pribilof southeast at 30 with gale warnings out for the St. Matthew Island area. Those will turn south, drop off 25 knots on Tuesday, southwest 25 for the Pribilof, south 20 for the southwest coast, southeast 25 for St. Lawrence Island. And for the Beaufort Sea coast, actually the entire Arctic coast here, east 15 tomorrow, variable 10 from Cape Beaufort down to the Bering Strait, and then east at 10 from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, and then 15 knot winds continue easterly through Tuesday, but maybe pick it up to 20 knots over to demarcation point. For tonight, isolated thunderstorms will be on the decrease later this evening here across southern Alaska with isolated scattered showers lingering back up toward the Nulato Hills. Next storm, rain, wind coming eastward here, gale force winds pushing eastward, starting to affect Unalaska Island toward morning and the Pribilofs. And the southeast coast here, still showery, low pressure off the coast, sending surges of moisture in. Another one comes in tomorrow. Isolated thunderstorms, Kenai Peninsula, back to the northwest along that trough. Otherwise, partly mostly sunny. Highs in the 60-65 degree range, cooler along the Arctic coast. Rain advances the Alaska Peninsula with wind. And then that front weakens, but brings a band of rain into the southwest interior from Kodiak back up across the Yukon Delta. Showers, chance of thunderstorms up over the northwest areas. Temperatures rising mid to maybe upper 60s, but high enough to possibly kick off some thunderstorms up there. Otherwise, mostly sunny here over the eastern interior. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.